Welcome, Pewter Report readers, listeners, and viewers to another edition of the Pewter Report podcast. I'm your host today, Matt Matera, and joined with me is, as he likes to say, the one, the only, it is Jon Ledyard. Jon, how does it feel to play second fiddle, man?
It feels good, actually, man. And I said, Matt, can you bring us in today a little bit? Because I'm a little bit under the weather, and so I'm powering through for the pod anyway. But I was like, man, I got to have that energy and that vocality that you bring there at the beginning of the podcast. Can't bring that when you're feeling under the weather. So in considering the circumstances, I think you nailed that. And it feels really good to be second fiddle today.
Well, thank you for the kind words. You know, you got to try to bring the energy, and I'm sorry you're feeling under the weather, but not saying that this is a medical cure. But if there's one thing that could bring it up a little bit for you, it would be drinking a Celsius energy drink. And of course, the Pewter Report podcast is brought to you by Celsius Energy. I am rocking the peach mango green tea today. What do you got there, Jon?
I got a little tropical vibe going on. I have been relying on Celsius to power me through this cold. Sparkling starfruit pineapple edition of the tropical vibe. Quite clutch, I'm not going to lie. It has been a huge help to me, especially because I don't sleep that well as a normal human being. Well, I'm not a normal human being, but especially when I'm sick. Yeah, when I'm sick, it goes way downhill. So tropical vibe has been, Celsius, very clutch. Somehow, Matt, there's no sugar in these things, and they taste as good as they do in different flavors. It's really kind of mind-boggling.
Well, that's what I love about Celsius, too. Of course, you get no jitters after. It's great when you're about to work out or you're going to play a sport or something like that. It gets you in the right frame of mind and gets your body moving. But I love the variety of the flavors that Celsius has. And not just the variety, but the taste of it is so good. And we're talking about a very eccentric different flavors, whether it's, you know, the kiwi guava or the mango guava, all these different things that you can't get from our other energy drinks. So big fan of Celsius, and thank you again to them for being a sponsor of the Pewter Report podcast. And make sure you check out their fast protein bars as well. I love the cookies and cream. I got a sweet tooth. I'm a sucker for that type of stuff. 20 grams of protein. It's a great way to start your day. If, you know, maybe you're sleeping a little bit too late and you got to head out the door so you can't really have a proper breakfast, the protein bars are a great substitute for that. So make sure you click on the banners on pewterreport.com, and you can buy it on Amazon. Go to your local store. You can buy it there too. Celsius Energy, you know where it's at.
Yeah, it's the place to be. Hey, we got a guest on the podcast today. We actually have a couple guests coming on the podcast.
Big day
today.
for guests.
It is a big day for guests. And the first of our guests is Kristin Jalwin. She comes from Sarasota. She's hailing from Sarasota, Florida, where she has been a fantasy football sports analyst for a while now on the Sports Caffeine. She's going to talk to us today about what it looks like for the Bucs skill players in week 1 against the Dallas Cowboys. Excited to bring her onto the show to talk with us a little bit. Kristin, how are you? Thanks so much for doing this.
I'm good, guys. I actually have to be right back because I'm going to order my Celsius because you
there we go.
Another convert.
Yeah, but you got a new customer now. I can't wait to try it. So
that's great.
Appreciate that.
I'm not gonna lie to you, Kristin. It's a game changer. And the different flavors are great as well. So I think you'll really enjoy it. You are covering fantasy football here, and can you talk to us a little bit about your background? Because I want people to know where they can find you, can find your work, can find everything that you do. And so talk to us about Sports Caffeine and your background, how you got into the sports and the fantasy football business.
Well, it all started kind of as a hobby. Some guys I know actually were doing a show locally at a bar. It was called A Different Show. Then we've kind of gone through progressions, and Sports Caffeine is the one we're at right now. We really, really got great when during quarantine, let me tell you, because everyone's at home watching stuff. So that's when it really, it was really fun. There wasn't a lot of sports going on, throughout the progression, I ended up becoming the fantasy girl. I'm not really sure how, probably because I'm the smartest on the show.
There you go.
We do a live pregame NFL show every Sunday down here in Sarasota at Rafferty's Bar and Grill. So you can come see us. We do our pick'ems. There's punishments every week. So it's been a fun show. We do giveaways, things like that. But yeah, somehow I think it's women's intuition that I got to be the fantasy girl. So last year I actually had an opportunity to be in a charity league called Pros with Joes. Stefania Bell was in the league from ESPN. There's a lot of, I work with Rosalie Michaels, who is the fantasy girl from DraftKings. Yeah. She's awesome. If you guys get a chance to interview her, she's always down for an interview. But so, yeah, you can find us on Facebook, Sports Caffeine. We're Sports Caffeine 1 on Twitter. I am KBlaze81 on Twitter, on Instagram, and
see, we were trying to find you on Twitter
Yeah.
before the show to
Yeah.
plug you, and I could not find you by searching your name.
it's a old nickname. As you can see, I talk really fast, and so I blaze through things. But KBlaze81, and we're really excited to start football and start doing our pregame show at Rafferty's, and hopefully I'll be doing some more stardom and sit-ems this week on Instagram for you guys and YouTube.
That's great. No, we're going to get into some of that too. Week 1, what your outlook is for the Bucs and for the host of skill position players that they have. I'm excited to hear your thoughts on that. But first, I found out you told me you were a Browns fan. So
we got a little rivalry
Ohio
going
State
on
shirt.
here.
And so what happened there? How did that happen? How have you weathered the storm over the years? And are you excited about this season?
I mean, growing up in Cleveland, the weather's terrible 9 months of the year, so there's nothing to do but watch sports. So everyone in Cleveland is raised a Browns fan. So we've suffered. I just turned 40, so I've suffered 40 miserable years. And so it's finally great I actually got my first Baker Mayfield jersey, compliments of one of my co-hosts on Sports Caffeine, for my birthday. And I've never owned a Browns quarterback jersey in 40 years. So it's to say something, Bernie Kosar might have been the closest, but yeah, we're excited for this year. I mean, we open up at Arrowhead. I mean, what a game, 2 AFC contenders there. So it's been rough. So we're really, really, really excited. I like this team we have, and it's going to be fun. Hopefully we'll see you guys in the Super Bowl.
Yeah, I was gonna say
that'd be quite the matchup. It's a good thing you didn't get a lot of Browns quarterback jerseys because you would have wasted a lot of money with the with the amount of quarterbacks that they went through.
I appreciate this one. The longest time I had my Joe Jurevicius, but I also have my Joe Jurevicius Bucs jersey for the longest time as well. Yeah, I went to the same high school as me, so.
Oh, nice!
Oh, cool, local
That's
product.
Awesome. No, I mean, you've made the right choice choosing the Ohio State clothing, but hopefully this is the year. Well, last year was kind of the year too that the Browns started to.
Ohio State, as long,
right. That's right. You can always count on Ohio State. They play is tomorrow night, right? They is tonight.
They play tonight. Are they going to cover the 14-point spread? I have to know that.
I would say yes, and then some. I mean, I just should. I mean, I'm one of those homers, and I'm just so bad. I'm an annoying Ohio State fan, and I'm sorry, but we're going to be good. So take the 14 plus.
That's great. All right, Kristin, let's talk about this Bucs team because it is so fascinating to me to get different thoughts from different fantasy analysts as we approach the season. Some of it, is totally fantasy football chatter, but also a lot of it is just like who's going to produce the most in this offense with so many different targets, so many different places for Tom Brady to go with the football. I just wonder, as you look at the top 3 receivers on this team, a trio of receivers, like we really haven't seen many teams like this that have 3 guys like this, then an offense that will throw this much for sure. This is pretty rare stuff. So how do you what statistics or analytics or anything, what process do you use, Kristin, to be able to figure out who to go with out of these 3 guys? Is it just week to week, or is there a guy that clearly you're going into the season, you're like, he's hands down the best wide receiver option on the Bucs?
Well, with any other team, you look at, who's the defense and who's covering them in the secondary. But here, it doesn't matter because you have 3 really, really good guys there with Godwin, Evans, and Antonio Brown. And it really is hard to pick. Obviously, it's Tom Brady and Antonio Brown have that great chemistry. And I just see them having a really, really big year together again. Like we've seen him before with Randy Moss when he set the records. And so Antonio Brown didn't play the whole season last year. He wasn't with the team the whole time. And I can see it's going to be the sneaker because Mike Evans is obviously going first. Chris Godwin is going not farther after him, if not before Evans. But I can see Antonio Brown coming out and having that caliber year where he's had a year to work with him. He's been in Tampa under these coaches. And I'm not going to put a Hall of Fame guy like that. And I think working with Brady, he's a leader and he's a coach and he's taken guys who've been troubled under his wing and helped them. And these guys want to set records and win Super Bowls. And I really see Antonio Brown being a late round guy. You can kind of get, I think his ADP, he's around like the number 35 wide receiver. He's pretty late. So, over like an AJ Green, who's also a veteran on a different team, I'm seeing Antonio Brown as being a sleeper this year, and him and Tom Brady, him being the go-to guy for Tom Brady.
Yeah, that's a great point. I'm glad we're having you on now because I had one fantasy draft last week and Antonio Brown was going like right around in that 7th or 8th round. But I have another one coming up this Monday. I want to make sure that I at least get one Bucs player. And I think it's so interesting with Brown because if he is going in that 7th or 8th round, I would call that a steal or a sleeper, as you just said, because I think more than any other receiver that late in the draft, he has the most potential to solidify himself, and we'll see how it plays out. But he has that great potential to have those blow up games where he has 8 receptions for 150 yards and a touchdown or 2, or he could also end up establishing himself as Tom Brady's number 1 target. When I go back to last year, and I'm talking about for fantasy football for like a whole season, not just a game by game basis, where like I had Mike Evans, loved Mike Evans as the player, but as a fantasy football player, I found it a little nerve-wracking at times because Mike had at least 2 games where he had 1 or 2 receptions, but it was for a touchdown. So you salvage an okay game because he got the 6 points on the touchdown. But if he only had 2 receptions and they weren't for scores, like that's a bad game for a guy that you're taking as your number 1 wide receiver, or a guy that you're taking in the first 3 rounds. So it's so tough to juggle all 3 of those guys.
Yeah, high draft pick Mike Evans in a PPR half point or full point. You're 2 catches. Like, thanks a lot, dude. I'd rather have the short slants or whatever to catch him. But it's going to be interesting. And another way, you look at it in the matchups and things, like the Bucs running backs. It's we had playoff Lenny and he was awesome, but last year they ran the ball only 38% of the time. So you're going to want a team. Maybe Christian McCaffrey's going first everywhere. New quarterback for him. We see what they do there in Carolina. So I'm sorry guys, I'm staying away from any of the Bucs running backs. Like that's the one area the Bucs really wants, as we know. But so for week 1 coming up with Dallas, Dallas also has that high octane offense. And if that can stay healthy, he was my quarterback last year. So
same.
Yeah, exactly.
And then I had Brady. So there you go.
So Brady, he's tough. I think week 1, he actually has some projections to be like top 5 quarterback there. Cause I think it's going to be, it's Super Bowl champions at home, opening night. I think Ed Sheeran is there.
Yep.
I think he's going to light it up week 1. So as much as you can. So I think he's going to throw a lot. We're going to see a lot of this offense open up. We haven't seen in the preseason. But yeah, I'm staying away from those running backs. And I'm also week 1 staying away from that defense. That defense is stacked. You're returning everybody, but I think Dallas is going to put some points on the board. And so this, like for week 1, Tom Brady, start him and start any of those receivers. If you can get, one in a flex spot or something, but yeah, stay away from those running backs. And it's going to be, an air attack on both sides of the ball. And I am so excited.
It's the perfect way to start off the season, honestly, with those 2 offenses going toe to toe, those 2 quarterbacks. But I got to ask you this too, going back to the Antonio Brown thing that you said. So how much are we riding Antonio Brown here? Like, is he number 1 on this team in catches, yards, and touchdown? Are we doing all 3 or 1 or the other? Like, what
it's so hard because they spread the ball out. I mean, Tom Brady, he projected maybe 2 rushing touchdowns himself, when they get down there and he does that.
He gets those QB sneaks. I love it.
He's have the hand on the ball, running it in. And, he's going to throw some to Gronk, his boy there too, the short one. So I think it's going to be really even spread reception-wise. But I think that you're going to have, and it's so tough because they all have long yards, so we had the 2 years where they both had the 2,000-yard receivers on the same team. And I don't see 3,000-yard receivers, but it could be 3 800-yard receivers. It's really tough to say, honestly. I don't know. I have them for week 1. I have it Evans, Godwin, and Brown right now. If you want to talk about
all right.
I think Evans is going to have. I have none of them at like a full touchdown, which is a weird thing. You know what I mean? I think Evans is most likely to get the touchdown. I think Gronk is going to get a touchdown. But I think they're all going to be within like 75, 100 for Evans. And then, middle tier for Godwin and Brown. I think Brown's going to take a little bit of time. It's week 1. We're going to see it. But I don't trust Dallas's defense. So everyone could have a really, really big game.
That's the hard part. That's the hard part with a defense like Dallas is that has no established defensive backs. Really. Like you don't know.
They're relying on a rookie to be like the head of their team.
Yeah, you don't have like Lattimore racing Evans and okay, there you go. Now Godwin's going to be the play in this game or blah blah blah. That you just don't have that in this game. So it makes it even trickier to figure out in some ways who's going to go off, especially because all of them could, like you said. So that is a lot to kind of think about and process when it comes to this receiving group. But I got to ask you also about the tight end room. Like here we got Rob Gronkowski, who, man, his numbers were fine last year, but if you looked at the tape of his performances too, there were so many like opportunities on the field where he got missed for touchdowns, for big plays. He really could have had like an 800-yard, 8-9 touchdown season very easily if Brady's just a little more accurate on a couple throws. For whatever reason, I've said this before on the podcast, but every skill player on the Bucs had the best catch rate of their careers last year with Tom Brady, except for Gronk, who had the worst catch rate of his career. Obviously, he's the one that's played with Brady throughout his career, so that made it very humorous to me, just a ridiculous statistic. But I still think that there's a lot of potential there. If Gronk had come out and dominated camp a little more, he was fine. But if he'd come out and like lit up camp, I might believe a little bit more. Now I kind of think he's going to be very touchdown dependent. Is that how you see him? And do you see any other factors in the Bucs tight end room worth starting? Yeah, I mean, probably not starting, but rostering at least.
Well, I mean, you can have Gronk. The tight end this year for tight ends is a really weird year, unless you have, Kelsey, Kittle, maybe Waller. It's kind of like we don't know what Jonnu Smith's going to do, and he was high end last year. So it really is a weird year. So you could roster Gronk, absolutely. He did have those missed catches. He was out for a year or two. You got to think about.
Yeah.
Yes, I'm going to see him as a touchdown guy, but Bruce Arians also hasn't been the guy who uses tight ends a lot. When they signed Gronk last year, I said more of a blocking guy. He's going to be there to protect Tom, maybe as a decoy, get those, end zone, like 5-yard passes into the end zone for the touchdown. So I think Gronk's going to have kind of a similar year, obviously more points if he can hold on to the ball. And I think he's proud enough, and he's probably worked hard enough with Tom now. I mean, you have like there's talking about catch rates. You got the GOAT, like just landing it, softly in your hands, like baby. Like that's surprising that Gronk had the worst, but also he's played with Tom so much. Like there's so many good years there.
Right.
But Gronk is definitely worth rostering. I actually had the Saints tight end. I was really excited about Troutman, and then he got hurt.
Yeah.
So really got rid of him. I do have the Green Bay tight end, Toya, but really it's going to be a really weird year unless you have Kelsey for tight ends. It's kind of shaking out like nobody. There's a lot of guys on new teams. I kind of see Zach Ertz, him in Philadelphia, kind of seem like they're making up a little bit, and they need Jalen Hurts the starter, a guy you can get. I think he's going unrostered in a lot of leagues.
Oh yeah, I'm sure.
Because they got Dallas. Yeah, I was gonna say they got Dallas Goedert, and he took a lot of the snaps last year too. But that's a huge question mark because Hurts only played a select number of games last year, so you never know. Building new chemistry with a new quarterback, whether he's going to favor one tight end over the other. They always say young quarterbacks love throwing to their tight ends, but if you have two of them, it's a coin flip for who he's going to pick.
Yeah, he's got to, we saw, with Fitzpatrick and Jameis, one loved Brate, one loved Howard, and they, found their guy there. So it's tight end position is definitely gonna be interesting. And every year we see that one guy out of nowhere come up and be the top 3 guy, where it was Waller last couple of years. So it could be anyone. It could be, one of these younger guys coming up, Dawson Knox, TJ Hawkinson. The tight end is always mystery to me, but Gronk is definitely worth rostering. I mean, that's it on that team there. I'm really having a hard time picking up Fournette or Jones as a RB1 or 2, maybe a good flex position week to week. But
yeah, I was going to ask you.
The Bucs have such an easy schedule. Like, come on, they get serious Super Bowl champs, and I was reading your predictions on pewterreport.com. I read all of your predictions, and
thank you.
I was like, yeah, they're homers, and I look at the schedule, and I'm like, oh no, they're not going to lose money.
It's difficult to find a lot of potential losses in there if they play up to their potential. Good question from Michael Henderson there, though. He says, do you factor in defensive strategies when you try to rank these guys week to week, at least? Is that something you look at a lot? Like teams that have how successful the Bucs been against certain coverage schemes or certain coordinators or coaches or teams when they go to play them?
Yeah, absolutely. Like, when they play the Saints, you got to remember the quarterbacks there, they're going to be, you obviously got to look at the defensive matchups there. If you are Stephon Diggs and you're going against these guys that are a great corner, and I can't think of anyone right now, the kid from the Dolphins, Xavier Howard, maybe put someone else higher there. Obviously, you got to look at the defensive strategy, but the Bucs, it's so hard because you have 4 guys between Gronk, Evans, Godwin, and Brown that he could just go to, and then maybe hand it off to Lenny, who, and it's just, and Scotty Miller. I mean, you got if they're all covered, you got this little speedster guy there. And so the Bucs is really hard because most teams are going to have a strong side on the secondary. And so they're just going to go the other way. And it's going to
Scotty Miller, I think is he's a perfect daily fantasy guy where if you want to take a risk for him, he's going to have that 1 week where he catches the deep ball, and not many other teams are going to have Scotty in their roster because again, it is a little bit of a bet there for sure. It seems like people have asked me, and hearing your opinion on this too. It seems like whether you're playing week to week or if it's for the long haul in a season, as talented as this team is, the only guy that I know I feel comfortable if this guy was on my roster is Tom Brady, just because, he's going to be the guy that's throwing the ball to all these talented players. He had 40 touchdowns last season. Do you see him going further than that for this year? And you got to factor in the rushing touchdowns as well. The QB sneak king, as they say.
Exactly. Oh God, I just love that. And actually, I love him a lot more after that Super Bowl parade when he got drunk and you saw that he was like kind of human and not so perfect. And
yeah,
I am a Tampa fan. I root for them. I live here. They're my NFC team.
Yeah, they don't really hurt they don't play the Browns that much. Yeah. So there's not that you don't have to worry about that.
As a hometown team, I like him and I like Brady a lot more. I see him right around the same area. I see him right around like 37 to 40 touchdowns, maybe a few less interceptions. He had 12. I'm thinking maybe around the 10 range there. Just because they play so many poor defenses, I just don't think he's going to have as many interceptions. But yeah, definitely. I was making fun of a guy in my league for taking Brady in the 3rd or 4th round. You amateur, and it was probably the pick he made, because I'm looking at it now and it's such an easy schedule. And with these receivers, it's going he's going to have a big year. And they're saying he could be like 2017 Tom Brady. Arians is talking about how he looks in this preseason and the practices. So it's going to be interesting. He's 44 now. And the guy's amazing. And I'm really excited to watch him. And yes, definitely. It's amazing to say after 21 years, but Tom Brady should be your starting fantasy quarterback if you can get it.
Yeah. For sure. Not completely understand that stance. No question about it. I won't argue with that at all. Kristin, Jalwin, ladies and gentlemen. Kristin, remind the people real quick before you let you go where they can find you and the work you do over at Sports Caffeine.
So we are Sports Caffeine 1 on Twitter and Instagram. We're on Facebook. Just search Sports Caffeine. I am KBlaze, KBlaze 81 at Twitter and at Instagram. So thanks for having me, guys. Awesome. It's fun.
Absolutely.
Appreciate you coming on.
So much,
Thank
Kristin,
you.
Coming on, giving us that fantasy football insight. Really good stuff, really fun stuff from you. And thanks for joining the show for sure. We've got another guest coming up here in a second, and I'm excited to get the famous, the one and only Taylor Grizz Jenkins in here to talk about. I don't know if he'll talk with us or not. I mean,
he's getting calls from other radio stations.
Exactly.
Pat and Aaron.
I don't know. I mean, I don't know if he remembers us from the fact that we used to work with him. And I don't know. It's hard. Once you've been retweeted by quote tweeted by Tom Brady, there's just a lot that changes in your life. And I know it's only been a few hours for him, but I'm kind of expecting him to pop on here, just like drinking an old fashioned and smoking a cig. And I'm just
wearing the sunglasses indoors. Yeah.
Big leather bound books. Anyway, before we bring Taylor Grizz Jenkins on here, while we're on this fantasy football kick, got to remind our friends over at UnderdogFantasy.com is where you can play fantasy football in their best ball leagues with that promo code Pewter, PEWTER. It gives you 20. Again, if you want that $25 in credit to play, just sign up real quick on UnderdogFantasy.com. That promo code allows you to put in opportunities for their tournaments. If you want to win $5 entries into their tournaments to win like $1 million, you can do that right on the homepage of UnderdogFantasy.com. It's free. You can get 5 entries for free with the $25 in credit that they give you. If you want to play fantasy football, you can do that as well. There's best ball leagues. We've done 5 drafts, I think, now, PewterReport.com. with people. Scott Reynolds and a bunch of fans, some that are in this chat, I saw him talking about it, did a $50 buy-in 12-person league draft last night. And I think Long Lost Glazer was saying that Scott was out there drafting Devontae Adams with a 3rd overall pick, just getting crazy ambitious.
Wow.
Pat Mahomes went 2nd overall, I think. Apparently it got crazy last night in that draft. So if you want to be a part of PewterReport.com drafts and draft with other Bucs fans, the other fans of the podcast, and myself, Scott, Matt, whoever, you can email me, jon@pewterreport.com. I know if you're listening, I haven't responded to one of your recent emails. I've gotten a couple lately. We filled 5 leagues. I'm waiting for a few more to try and fill one more league before the season starts, maybe 2 more. If you want to do a $25 to buy-in, $50 buy-in, or less than those, make sure that you let me know that in the email too. But jon@pewterreport.com, let me know your interest. But even if you're not interested in one of our leagues and you just want to do a tournament, go to UnderdogFantasy.com, use that promo code Pewter, PEWTER, sign up and get that $25 of credit. All right, Matt, we got to bring him in. We'll see if he'll talk to us. We'll see if he'll give us the time of day here. But we got to bring in our friend Taylor Grizz Jenkins here onto the show.
There he is.
How we doing, guys?
We're doing well, big dog.
What is it, Matt and Jake? I can't quite remember. Sorry, so many names running around in my head. Had to squeeze this in. My agent's on the phone. I've got a cover shoot with Sports Illustrated. But good. Thanks for having me on. I'll see if I can make a few seconds here.
Yeah. We appreciate it.
Best friend of Tom Brady here, Taylor Grizz Jenkins. Look at him. I mean, look at this background. It looks so. I remember,
man.
Yeah,
just like last week when you. It wasn't last week, but when you had the wooden slats behind you and everybody.
Don't worry, I still got some wood over here everywhere. I set it up a little differently.
That's a heck of an upgrade. That is. I love it. The bobbleheads and everything. You got the book on the other side. That's
great. Look at that.
You know, Brady's treating me well these days.
Yeah, I was gonna say, you know,
he hooks it all up.
Surround yourself with success, and like overnight, you know, you just you went from Brady taking his picture at the combine to what Brady looks like now.
That's exactly right.
In the blink of an eye,
I've made the transition.
The finger.
That's right. It's beautiful to see. It's beautiful to see all the changes that have happened for you. I just want to ask, like, since you got retweeted by Tom Brady, which if people don't know today, Taylor took a clip from the unbelievable Buccaneers production in the current that you can watch over on YouTube. Please watch it on YouTube. It's so good.
Oh, it's great.
He took a clip from it where Brady's kind of trash talking Mike Vrabel very humorously for about 30 seconds or so, tweeted it out. Okay, let's just start at the beginning. Let's start at that point. You tweet it out. What's in your head? Like, you know, you've been around Trevor Sycamore long enough to know what works, right? So you know exactly. This has some chance.
Yeah, you come from the school of Sycamore.
I come from the school of Sycamore. So I was going to say, it's so funny how kind of our brains are wired to work in this industry with like social media. So funny enough, I was like laying on the couch last night. I was getting ready for bed. I was moving to my bedroom. I flipped on YouTube and it was like 1 a.m. And I flipped on that episode of it had been out for like 3 hours and I haven't even been keeping up with it a ton. It's an amazing series, like we've said, but I was like, oh, I'll watch it. You know, I love watching them. They're so well done. And I'm watching it. It's like 1 a.m. and I see that clip and I was like, oh man, like that's so funny. Like it's just the epitome of what Tampa Tom is. He came here and he's been like so outspoken, so on social media, so funny. It's like he has a whole like years of this hilarious personality, this dad comedy hasn't gotten to let loose. And I right at that moment, I last night and I was like, you know what? Going to shoot it out. It's 1 a.m. No one's going to see it. Like, I think people would find this funny. I'll shoot it out when I wake up in the morning. So I got up this morning.
Scheduled.
Yeah. So I had it scheduled. I was like, I was going to say, that's how our minds are so like wired to work. It's like, oh no, it's 1 o'clock. No one's going to see this. Not just the fact it's like, oh, this is funny. Let me tweet it. I was like, oh, you know what? I'll wake up in the morning before I go to work. I'll shoot it out. And I shot it out, and like immediately people were like retweeting it and liking it. And I was on the way to work, and I was tweeting a buddy, and I was like joking. I was like, oh, likes, like, it's going to go viral. You know what I mean? Like just kind of joking. And then I was actually at work in a meeting with another one of our writers and my editor. We're going over like how the paper is going to look next week. And I got my phone in my pocket. It had been kind of buzzing a lot more than I'm used to from the likes and stuff. It was at a couple thousand. And I looked down at my watch, and I'm getting like DMs, like in like text buddies, and like they're sending me screenshots, and I just see like Brady quote tweet, and I was like, oh, like what's going on? I pull out my phone in the middle of this meeting. I was like, sorry, like Brady just quote tweeted me. And they're like, and they were immediately like, oh my gosh, like
stop what they're doing. Tom Brady has quote tweeted me.
Fire me if you want.
So to Sarah and Bree, like, I'm sorry. The rest of the meeting, I was like, it was kind of laid back, casual meeting, just going over like what the stuff in the paper's gonna be next week, and I can't even focus. I was like, yo, like this is crazy. Like it because then like everybody started retweeting. Like all of a sudden, like things are blowing up. Like my buddies are sending me like screenshots of it, and they're sending me like it's like the top post on like the NFL subreddit, and they're sending me screenshots of Bleacher Report, and it's on there. I get out of the meeting, I'm like walking back to my desk, and I get a call from the Pat and Aaron show, and they're like, hey man, like, hey, this is so and so from the Pat and Aaron show. Like, we were just wondering if you wanted to pop on for like 10 minutes and like talk about Brady quote tweeting you. And I just thought it was like, it's fun. Like it's fun, you know, for things like that to happen. It's cool to see how everybody reacts to it, and to see all the fan bases from all around the world come together to be like, yo, turns out that like it was just the Patriots we didn't like. Like Tom Brady's actually super likable. And that's why I was like, it's so the epitome of like who he's been since he got here, just his personality. But really, I mean, like you said, all I did was take this little clip and put it out. From the real credit goes to the Buccaneers. I mean, everybody, not in the front office, but like everybody in that organization, from like Jill Beckman, who runs their social media, an absolute superstar at what she does. She's amazing. She spearheads so much amazing content for the Bucs social media accounts. And then everybody behind the scenes, from their video teams, to their graphics teams, that do an unbelievable job, including what we're talking about right now, which is just an awesome series inside the current. It's just, I'm sure you guys and most of the listeners now have seen it. But if you haven't, I mean, I'm a little biased because I want to watch the Bucs, but it's like incredible behind the scenes stuff. Probably better than Hard Knocks in my humble opinion. But just like kind of a crazy little like morning of just silliness. Like all of a sudden, like I'm just covering right now. I'm just covering sports for Plant City. And all of a sudden, like the GOAT's quoting me. He's got 2 million followers. I've got like 1 million people arguing, like talking about how
man,
they love
it's
Tom. I love Tom now.
Right, of course. It's crazy because obviously In the Current is awesome with the Bucs, and other NFL teams have done like their own production, whatever, and it's all better than Hard Knocks. Like it's not even close. Like granted, the team can spin things the way they want to, and everything will be good. So you have that benefit of it. I'll just give you the perspective from like what was going on when I saw the tweet. So we were literally like right in between interviews at press conferences, whatever. And we were waiting for a player, and I have Brady. I turned my notifications on for Brady. So anytime he tweets, I get it. And so it said like Tom Brady tweeted, and then it said underneath like Taylor Jenkins. I was like, wait, what? And like I pulled it up and I saw that he quote tweeted it. And right as I like reacted to it, just to myself, Greg Allman is over to the left of me, a couple seats over, and he's like, "Oh, Taylor Jenkins got a quote tweeted by Brady." And I turned to him, and we were both kind of like, "Yeah, let's go." And then funny enough, we were talking after, and I was like, "Yeah, because I had texted you, and I'm sure you were getting bombarded with stuff, so you had sent me the wrong emoji, and then you corrected and sent the right emoji." And I was telling Greg like, "Oh yeah, he's probably like going crazy right now because so many people are hitting him up, whatever." And we were just joking like, hey, you could go out later and get pulled over for speeding. Just show the officer your text, like, sorry, officer, but I got quote tweeted by Tom Brady. And he'll be like, okay, you're good to go.
Yeah.
So
it's like, I told Brady, next drink's on me. I'm on the way to Davis Island. Get on the yacht right now.
Sir, you don't understand. I got quote tweeted by Tom Brady. I have to get going. I'm sure the officer would let you off with at least just a warning.
But it's crazy how social media works, right? It's crazy how like I shoot out the like, I mean, we're all guilty of just shooting out these goofy tweets, just content and stuff, the stuff that we think fans would like and people like it, just fans of the game would like. And then in one moment, like Brady sees it and just does that. And all of a sudden it just like takes on a whole life of its own. It's kind of insane. And then I'm literally Pewter Report podcast, 620 interviews, and all I did was shoot out like a goofy 27-second clip of the Bucs. Like
you were thinking at 1 a.m.
That's right. That's the school of Sycamore, man. You did it well. You knew, you understood, you paid attention in class, you took notes, and you executed the class assignment very well. Trevor would be very, very proud, as I'm sure he is somewhere. I did see him. I didn't know if he texted or anything or seen it today because I know he's traveling today.
I did send it to him. I sent it to him, and he was like, he gave me the like OMG LOL all caps like. But it was funny because Matt, right when you texted me, Greg DM'd me, like Stephen Che DM'd me.
That. Oh, nice.
It was just super fun.
That's great.
How crazy social media can just like snowball like that, and how like one little tweet I shoot out I think is funny at 9 a.m. and then all of a sudden it just takes on a whole life of its own.
Hey, it made us very happy. We all kind of cracked up when we saw it in the group.
I wish it happened more when I was at Pewter Report, man.
Yeah, but seriously,
I wish stuff like that happened more when I was actually covering the Bucs.
Next time you got something like that, we'll tweet it out from the Pewter Report account, man. Like, come on, you don't need that clout. Like,
hey guys, come on, content right here, content provider.
Right. Hey, that kind of stuff is really good, though. I hand it to you on that. All right, well, while we have you here, Taylor, can we get some Bucs thoughts from you? I know people like, hey, we love social media, but let's talk about the Bucs a little bit here. Preseason's wrapped up. Regular season is approaching. Week 1 against Dallas. I know you're moving on. You've got high school football running through your brain right now, and you're doing great work over the Plant City Observer. But I am curious your thoughts right now on the Bucs and looking around at the rest of the league. Like, do you feel like this team is probably going to be better than the team that we covered and saw win a Super Bowl last year?
I mean, I don't really know how they can't be. Like, granted, it's really, really hard to win in sports. In any professional sport, you see how many great people don't do it. I jokingly said a couple days ago, like how the landscape of the NFL is going to change so much when Brady's gone, because he's been in the league and he's been to 10 Super Bowls. That means that 50% of the time that, any other team in his conference just doesn't have a chance to go to the Super Bowl. And he's won 7 of them now. So statistically, about a third of the time, any other team that could be a Super Bowl champion wasn't. So I'm not saying that the Bucs are like, it's them against the field, which the odds are never great, but they just come off a Super Bowl win. They are the first team in the salary cap era to return all 22 starters. And not just that, but they returned all of their staff. You had Todd Bowles interviewing with some teams, and you're probably a little lucky they went so far in the playoffs because you don't lose guys like that, but almost the entire staff comes back. And then, as you guys I'm sure have talked about, you bring back so much depth. And not only that, but you look at how long we talked all year last year about this team just doesn't look good enough to win a Super Bowl. They don't look good enough to win a Super Bowl. They look good. They're great on paper. They have all this talent. But until that bye week, when they made significant adjustments, they started throwing the ball more on early downs. They started utilizing the play action, which you had been beating the table for since you joined Pewter Report and the Bucs started playing. And they made all of these adjustments. And Tom Brady comes out and he goes, I didn't even really know the system that well. So I don't really know how they can be a worse team. And I think that really bodes well with a full offseason camp, with off-season workouts, with a full training camp, with preseason games, how they can't come out better. And it's just they're going competition. I think the AFC is probably a little tighter at the top than it is in the NFC, but I don't know how they can't enter the season right there with the Chiefs as favorites to be back, if not win it. Just an unbelievable roster that now has a year of continuity, and that could be really, really scary. And then you guys saw they go and they add some real. How do you let the Bucs get Joe Tryon-Shoyinka? 31 teams let the Bucs do that? He's not even a starter.
Yeah,
he's not even a starter, and he looks like he could go out there and be an 8-10 sack guy. That's just a wealth.
It's not fair.
A wealth. That's just a wealth of riches.
I have this completely illogical. I wouldn't even call it anxiety necessarily, but just they're almost too good. You know what I mean? I feel like I have to kind of not that I make up stuff. I can see pads. Outside of everybody, the injury is the obvious disclaimer, but I can see pads. Just think about the NFC. Realistically, it's
the Packers.
It's the Packers.
The
right?
Packers
who have a worse roster than last year. Now Rodgers could be so good it doesn't matter for sure. But a worse roster, offensive line is definitely worse. And without Bakhtiari for the first 6, maybe 7 weeks of the season, at least the first 6 weeks he's on the PUP list. It's just there's a lot of questions. The rest of how quickly can Stafford and those guys put it together? That's a good team for sure with the Rams. But are they going to?
Browns are right there. Can they put it together? But the Browns have an unbelievable.
Yeah, you got Kansas City,
AFC,
Buffalo, right then and there.
AFC, I can see the challengers absolutely. If you told me somebody beats the Bucs in the Super Bowl and from the AFC, that part is easy for me to picture, and I can figure out how that happens with some of the teams like the Bills, the Chiefs, maybe the Browns if Baker's on that level. We'll see. But in the NFC, I think the Bucs are going to have to play poorly or suffer injuries to lose to some of those teams. Maybe Rodgers is just that magical. But I don't know if the Rams are going to be ready. The 49ers question.
The Bucs beat them twice last season. Granted, the second game was close. So, they that home game, they kicked the crap out of the Packers.
And for a lot of that game, it didn't look that close. The final score was a lot closer than that Packers play. That was pretty much a steamrolling through the first half. That touchdown to Scotty Miller was really big to give him a little cushion, but it never really felt that close. And what was it, week 6 last year when they beat him? That game was just a shellacking. There was about 3 drives combined where Packers went down and scored. Bucs were struggling a little bit where we were oh man, this is not going well. And then for the last 3.5 quarters, it was just brutal.
Yeah. It's a totally different world. You guys know from having covered this team even longer than I have, and I can only just imagine and see the reactions of Bucs fans. Tony says here, we are used to talking about the draft by October. Now we are trying to find which NFC teams can beat the Bucs. It's amazing turnaround. It is pretty unbelievable. Yeah. And there's been a lot of pieces to it. And we've talked about it at length, and we'll continue to talk about it at length. But I am just kind of surprised by it's not just how good the Bucs are, but also the rest of the NFC. They've hit this at the right time, I think, at least on paper.
Yes.
Again, you got to go out and execute. You can lose any week. You could clearly lose to a team that's worse than you. We've seen it happen in the regular season and the playoffs. So it's not saying anything's guaranteed, but our job is just to look at what's in front of us, the information, and say, wow, this is really good. Now, Dallas is going to have a great offense in that week 1 game, which we'll get into a ton next week. That is going to be a good game because offense has started faster than defense for a couple weeks or a couple seasons in a row now. Last year was the most points through the first 3 weeks. For the first week, second week, third week, I think I don't know when at one point it fell off or if it did fall off. I know for the season, I think it was the most points scored in a season, but we'll see if that rate goes up. But offenses start faster than defense, I think, usually. And so just the fact that it could be some type of a shootout early on, I think that first game is going to be one of the toughest games of the year for the Bucs.
I actually think.
Dak Prescott was averaging what until he got hurt last year, like 450.
But you got to think they were down. They were down by like 50 points every single game,
blown out by everyone.
Which is why he had to do that. I actually think, I'm almost more excited for the Bucs defense than what they can do offensively, because I just feel like because one's back and the way Todd Bowles can draw things up, I think this defense will be even better than last season and can win a couple games. Maybe not necessarily early on, but they'll win some games for the Bucs just because if offense is struggling, just because a lot of teams aren't going to score against them, I don't think. Granted, Dallas is a good team, and sure, they got a lot of weapons, but Dallas, a lot of times, too, they need to, their bread and butter, even with all the great wide receivers, they're all about running the ball and setting up that RPO. But the Bucs have the best run defense in the NFL. So, I'm not worried about Ezekiel Elliott at all. And that just speaks for the whole. To go back to the contenders real quick, yes, we think it's the Packers that are number 1. I think there's a couple teams too where it's like, their ceiling is really high, but you never really know if they're going to actually get to that level. I think the Cowboys are a perfect example. I think it was Long Lost Glazer said the 49ers. That's another team. Yes, they could get there, but they have
Lance
so many
would have to hit
injuries
right away. And
issues like that
in the preseason.
The Rams.
I will say the Bucs did get really lucky last year with injuries. They were one of the least injured teams, I think, from a starting games missed.
Both
and I mean, even the year before,
Arians,
you see some and I think Arians has gotten better with that because you did see guys like Scotty Miller go with some soft tissue for questioning should they be going 100% in practice in November, after a full off season of summer heat, in Florida. And I think that he's gotten better with the sports science. He fully embraces that, which is awesome. He gives guys like Ndamukong Suh, Gronk, all the guys that are a little older on this team, he says they know how to play the game. They'll be here on Sunday. They don't need to. JPP doesn't need to practice 4 days leading up to a week 5 game. And I think that's really important. They've done a really good job of keeping guys healthy. Obviously, a lot injuries do involve a lot of bad luck, and you hope that the Bucs don't have that. One thing, Matt, to your point with the defense, I'm really interested in seeing to what degree guys take steps forward compared to what they regress. Because I think that one thing that's really fresh in people's mind is how well the Bucs defense played in the playoffs. We knew that they had a great front seven. We knew that they could shut down the run. They did that all year. But there was a significant amount of time last year when, John, we were talking about, is Sean Murphy-Bunting even good enough to be in the starting lineup right here? Is Devin White going to continue to be a liability in coverage? Now, you guys have seen that I have in camp this year. But I want to see once game action gets started. I've had confidence in the world in Jamel Dean. Last year I was writing articles last offseason, is he already the best cornerback on this league? But we've seen him struggle. We've seen him have situations where he isn't that strong. Jordan Whitehead, you kind of know what you have. I don't want to get blocked here, but he is a really good player. He's physical, he's downhill, but he's not going to be pro, caliber guy, but he is a really good contributor in what he does. Is he going to stay there? I think he's got the talent to. I think he probably will. In that role. Carlton Davis, we know he's got the talent, but last year was far and above. He was looking like a borderline top 10 cornerback in this league last year. He can still be good and not be that level, but the Bucs need him to. He was the guy that was shadowing the Julio Jones and shadowing the Michael Thomases and locking those guys down. And then once playoff time came, all those guys that we really had questions about, Devin White's coverage ability, Sean Murphy-Bunting's coverage ability, they came up huge. I mean, Devin White flying. After the Washington game, Devin White flying all over the field. He wasn't in that game, but after that, flying all over the field. Sean Murphy-Bunting had 3 interceptions in the playoffs last year. Guys like Mike Edwards were stepping up and getting picks. So if that secondary can, even be close to what they were in the playoffs last year, in that little undefeated run they went on, and kind of eliminate some of the struggles that they had, this defense can be absolutely disgusting.
Yeah.
But again,
Yeah.
offense is far more predictable year to year as far as like they're far less variable. You kind of can predict production a lot better than defense. So we'll see. But I think it's just as likely they get better than they regress.
No, that's a great point too, Taylor. Just speaking about the defense, with the corner is the one question mark in terms of overall depth, I would say. For example, okay, if Vita Vea gets hurt again, we saw last year they proved, okay, you put in Nacho, you put in McClendon in there, or like if Sue got hurt, you still have Vita, you put those guys in. Linebacker, if one of those guys has to miss a game, you're pretty confident in Kevin Minter. Safety, you have Mike Edwards as the third safety who could probably be a starter on a lot of other teams, and he still makes an impact as that third role. But again, at corner, if Carlton Davis is hurt, then you got Dean and SMB. Yes, you have Ross Cockrell, but I think you're less confident in that than you would be with any of the other depth roles at those positions that I just mentioned. So I agree with you there.
And I tweeted this when to your point, like if a guy now Vita is that man is as close as you can get to a unicorn on the defensive line. I think is not exactly a guy you can replace. You can put Band-Aids on the cut. You can't really heal it. We saw how unbelievable that defense was immediately when he came back. It was just like it was already a good defense, but just got completely different front with him there. But I am so excited to see pass rush defense, man. When you have Vita Vea in the middle, you've got JPP on the
Yep.
He's muted. Is he muted for you?
He's muted for me.
I can't hear him. He muted him.
Can't. Yeah, you're muted, man.
His mic. He unplugged his mic, baby. Their mic isn't connected, it says. The passion about the pass rush got Grizz to unplug that mic.
He lost his voice. He was so excited about it.
He is right about that. I mean, that pass rush is, to me, if you're looking for area that this team can be more distinguishably different than in years past, you might be good now, Grizz. Or than last year even. The pass rush that you can get with 4 and not having to rely on as much blitzing, which again, remember, it was a difference maker in the Super Bowl. And I know that was against a lot of backups. Now you have better players rushing on your side. It's going to make a big difference, I think.
Sorry, guys. Can you guys hear me now?
Yeah, we got you. Yeah.
I think I bumped my mic and it screwed everything up. Like my mic wasn't working. My
headphones was calling you. I didn't know if Brady was calling you on like another StreamYard link and you had to like jump out.
Not yet. So, I think we're scheduled to speak at 7 tonight. So we're good.
Okay. All right. Sounds good. Well, we actually got to wrap up here and let you go. We're going to keep this podcast a little bit shorter before my cracking voice here goes completely. But we do appreciate you jumping on, Taylor, and giving us some insight, man. It's always a lot of fun having you on the show and getting you to come back and talk about stuff. And I hope you and Brady enjoy your newfound friendship, and it's a blossoming relationship for y'all.
Yeah, thank y'all for having me on. It's always a good time. You guys continuing to do, absolutely phenomenal work. It's always fun reading you guys stuff. And again, it's always fun to get to pop in here and just talk Bucs football. So I appreciate having me on.
For sure.
Yeah, thanks for coming on. Is USF going to cover plus 19?
I think they'll cover. I don't know about winning, but also – and at this point, I'm just looking for progress.
Yeah,
I'm realistic with the win totals, but I was so heartbroken last year. Things were going to change a little bit with Jeff Scott, one win, but I love the foundation they've got. I love the foundation. I really have no idea what to expect. I like to think they'll cover, but the future's bright, even if the present might not be quite as bright.
We'll stick with that. The future's bright.
But go Bulls.
Absolutely. Taylor Grizz, Jenkins,
thanks, Taylor.
Ladies and gentlemen. Jumping out of here. Well, it's good stuff, Matt. And it reminds me that as you're talking about coverage and all those kind of things, it reminds you to mention our friends over at Briar Greaves Insurance. You don't stay in business for over 30 years if you're things right, but none more than giving exceptional personal service to their insurance customers. We all need insurance, whether it's life, homeowners, auto, or even commercial insurance. Briar and Sam Greaves and their staff, they're the best in the Bay Area. They're big Bucs fans. Excuse me, it'll take you 10 minutes. Just give them a call, see if they can save you some money. That's all you got to do. BriarGreavesInsurance.com or call them 813-876-4166. Give those guys a call, see if they can save you some money on your insurance. Matt, next week, full slate of shows lined up on the Pewter Report TV channel. We've got Monday's podcast at 4 p.m. Eastern, Tuesday's podcast, 4 p.m. Eastern, Wednesday, and then we roll right into Thursday. Pretty sure that's the schedule for next week. Games on Thursday.
Yeah, the game's on Thursday.
We'll have the post-game pod on Thursday, and then another pod on Monday. Then we'll be off on Friday. and then we'll be off on the weekend and leave you with your thoughts on Friday. But next week, full slate of shows. Week 1 is approaching. We've got lots of preview work to do. I'm going to have a production prediction for all the Bucs skill position players for the year, how I think they'll finish out their box score stats for the year will finish out. So there's going to be a lot to look forward to over at PewterReport.com and on the Pewter Report podcast next week. And we're very excited about it. We're especially excited about the show that we are hosting over at Whiskey Wings in Temple Terrace. That's going to be on Thursday, pregame show before we dive into that live stream that we're going to be doing during the Bucs Cowboys game. We're going to have a pregame show over at Whiskey Wings. It's going to be live. It's going to be on site. We're going to be having a great time over there. So if you're a Bucs fan, go on out to Whiskey Wings. They got $8.99 burgers and fries out there and $5 Tito's. You got lots of opportunities to have a great time over at Whiskey Wings. And so head on out there next Thursday. It's going to be a blast. You'll get to meet, I think Scott and myself will be out there. And we'll be doing the live pregame show stuff on the Bucs and and the Cowboys. It'll be great before the game. So we'll let you know more details about that as we get closer, but that's going to be next Thursday. So Whiskey Wings is going to be the place to be. Can't wait for that. Can't wait for week 1. Can't wait to be back next week on the Pewter Report podcast. So appreciate you all for a great week and great attendance, listenership, viewership, all of that on the Pewter Report podcast. Out.
1 week till Bucs football. Let's